It's hard to tell this story. Not because I don't remember it, but because I feel like I've had to block it out of my memory so that I can live a normal life. I pray every day that I'll wake up and not remember what happened that day when I was 10 years old. But every day I do, and I feel that I have to tell it or it'll stay inside me and fester until I take my last breath. My sister Phoebe and I were inseparable. We'd fight like cat and dog when we were together, but the minute we were separated, something would feel wrong in the pit of my stomach. It was like there was a part of me missing. I guess that's what most twins are like. We grew up in a leafy cottage on the outskirts of Hebington, a little village in Oxfordshire. We were lucky enough to have a forest as a back garden, and two friends our age that lived in the house over the road, Benji and Paul, the Lutz brothers. Every morning we'd head off to school. Our parents would let us watch an hour of cartoons and would then usher us off to play. We'd be back by 5 for dinner. It sounds strange that our parents let us wander off unattended these days, but it was just how things were back then. The tunnel was a 10-foot-long pipe stuck under some earth, half filled with tepid muddy water. There was enough space for a small person to fit in, if they had crawled on their belly. It was covered with a gray moss that looked like mold and it smelled like death. But to us kids, it was the scariest place that we could think of. We didn't think about it for the most part, and the forest was an infinite playground, filled with broken logs we could jump off, sticks that we could play fight with, trees to climb. One day, it was a rocket ship taking us to Mars. The other day, it was a pirate ship. However, the tunnel was always off limits. And Benji thought that there were ghosts down there. I saw them with my own eyes, he told us, puffing up his chest. It was a weird-looking woman. Her eyes were all black. She told me to get away from the tunnel and to never go back. You're making that up. Paul rolled his eyes. Ghosts want to kill you. Why would she tell you to go away? Benji shrugged and swung his legs off the branch that he sat on. I don't know. Maybe she was a nice one. Paul pushed him with a short jab in the ribs and Benji fell off of the branch with a cry. There aren't nice ghosts, you idiot. There aren't ghosts at all. Yeah, Benji. Phoebe chimed in. I tucked my hands in my pockets, and Benny scrambled to his feet, his face burning. Don't be mean, I muttered. Benji flashed me a look of gratitude. Paul laughed a short, humorless laugh and Phoebe laughed along. I hated when she was like this. Paul always made her meaner. Shut up, Phoebe. You wet the bed after you watched that ghost movie Mom told you not to. Phoebe's cheeks flushed red. I'm not scared, Rosie. You are, she said defensively. I'd climb through there. Ghosts aren't real, everybody knows that. You wouldn't go through that tunnel. I shook my head. Yeah, I would. Bet you wouldn't. The thought of darkness in that tunnel, so thick you could almost smell it. I looked at the 3 pairs of expectant eyes and I shrugged. I don't care. I'm not afraid either. Maybe we all should go through it. Benji clapped his hands together. I don't care if you make fun of me. I'm not going inside. Well, we are, Paul said smugly. We're going to crawl all the way through and show you there's nothing to be afraid of. A canopy of leaves that cast a shadow over it hid the tunnel from the prying eyes of adults. If you saw a photo of it, it would look like a dirty, unused pipeline, and nothing else. But there was a sort of heaviness to the place. It felt forbidden, and not because our parents had told us. It was a strange unwritten rule. Paul slammed his fist onto the entrance of the tunnel, and it made a long hollow thump as it echoed through to the end. Sounds fine, I'll go first. Make sure you hold on to my ankle so you don't get lost. His tone was childishly authoritative. I knew he was trying to impress us. Phoebe, you go after me. I'll look after you. He smiled and Phoebe smiled back and I rolled my eyes. Oh great, I'll go last. Paul and Phoebe ignored my sarcasm. Benji looked up at me with unconcealed worry. Maybe you shouldn't go, he muttered. Paul laughed and got on his hands and knees. He climbed into the gaping mouth of the entrance and he called back, his voice bouncing and echoing for what felt like forever. Ghosts aren't real. Let's go. Phoebe shrugged and bent down to grab his ankle. Paul shuffled forward. Oh man, it stinks. Yeah, it's a tunnel, Paul. Just keep going. Let's get this over with. I shivered and I gripped my sister's ankle. Paul was right. The tunnel smelled like death. I shuddered at the thought of having to climb over a dead squirrel that had been in there for God knows how long. The daylight stretched a little past the entrance, but we couldn't see the light from the other side. We were plunged into almost complete and immediate darkness. I could hear Paul talking to Phoebe, but the echoes distorted his voice and I was too nervous to pay attention. I felt a pang of fear, of regret as the tunnel started narrowing and we had to lie on our stomachs and crawl forward. The light at the beginning of the tunnel had almost completely faded and confusion hit me. The tunnel was too short for it to be this dark. The darkness felt like it was swallowing me, and my grip on Phoebe's ankle tightened. Guys? Paul's voice was eaten up by the nothing ahead of him. I want to go back. My fingers dug into Phoebe's leg as I slipped in the ground beneath me. Hey! She hissed and turned back to look at me. I could just about make out her small bird-like features, screwed up with anger. You made me jump. Sorry, I whispered back. She turned back and I heard a sharp intake of breath. What? What's wrong? Paul must have gone ahead. He's not here. Anxiety fluttered in my chest. This was exactly the kind of thing I should have expected from Paul, but I hadn't thought that he'd be brave enough to keep on crawling in the dark by himself. Whatever, I muttered. We'll see him at the end. It can't be that much further. We kept going. After 15 minutes, lit up on my tiny digital watch, I started to realize that something was very wrong. Even in my childish mind, I knew how long it should have taken. Maybe a few minutes at the most. I started to go over the explanations in my head. Maybe there was a turn that we had accidentally taken. Maybe there was a network of tunnels and we would be lost in here forever. But no, we had just gone straight. There had been no turnings. I could feel Phoebe ahead of me shivering uncontrollably. Maybe we should go back, she said weakly. I don't feel so good. Her skin was clammy and cold against my fingertips. Maybe, I whispered back. We kept going. A smell like the one inside the butcher's shop in town started getting stronger. The steady trickling water on the floor of the tunnel had become thicker, staining my hands and my arms. After about 3 hours of crawling, Phoebe stopped and started to cry tiny racking sobs that echoed through the dripping cement walls. I could feel my soaking clothes stinking and sticking to me, chilling me to the very bone. It'll be okay, I told her quietly. No, she replied. It won't be. I found Paul. I looked over her shoulder, my eyes straining and aching to see what was ahead. But Phoebe was right. It was Paul. But it wasn't all of him. His torso, or pieces of it, was piled like stacked butcher's meat. I could see the filthy water lapping around the pink flesh. His head was on top of the pile, like a gory trophy. His face was contorted into a horrible scream, his eyes gouged out and placed neatly next to his face. I can't describe how I felt. The closest thing is utter helplessness. Paul hadn't fallen or hit his head or suffocated. Something in this tunnel had killed him and had left him for us to see. From somewhere, a foul-smelling gust of air hit us, and I swear I could hear a laugh bounce off the walls of the tunnel. We need to hide, I gasped out, pulling Phoebe to the side of the tunnel. Look, there's a little dent in the wall up here. We can rest there for a minute and figure out what we're gonna do. Phoebe's sobs are choking her. I can't go past him. I can't, she cried. It's okay. Close your eyes. Imagine we're outside. She took a deep breath, squeezed her eyes shut, and moved. I closed my eyes and I followed. I could feel my shoulders slide past the meat that was once Paul, and swallowed the tears that were threatening to take me over. We reached the alcove in the wall, enough space for the both of us to cuddle up. My hand found Phoebe's and we clung to each other. "Phoebe." My voice sounded small as it echoed around the tunnel. "I'm sorry for telling them that you wet the bed." I felt her small, cold hand curl around mine. "It's okay, it doesn't matter now," she whispered. We fell asleep like that, our hands entwined. It was a short, shallow sleep riddled with anxiety but brought on by pure exhaustion. We had been in the tunnel now for 4 hours. I had small, second-long dreams that felt like they were real, hands grabbing at my hair, clawing my eyes. A laugh, that same unearthly sound of joy I heard when we had found Paul, haunted me. "Phoebe!" I screamed into the darkness. The pit of wrongness in my stomach that appeared when she was gone was stronger than it had ever been. Another laugh drifted through the mud and filth towards me. It was getting closer. I panicked and it felt like the walls were closing in on me. Phoebe was gone, and the thought of something grabbing me by the foot and dragging me back into the darkness was enough to keep me frozen to the walls. I couldn't do this alone. Rosie. Phoebe's voice came from ahead. "I found the end of the tunnel. We've got to go, now." I choked back a cry of relief and crawled, my arms cut and bleeding from the uneven floor. The foul-smelling wind blasted past me and the laugh had turned into one of anger, of disbelief. It was getting closer, impossibly closer, moving at inhuman speeds. Rosie, go faster. And then there it was. A light. Weak, but it was there. I crawled, my lungs screaming in protest. I was almost there. As my hands reached out for it, a claw grabbed at my leg. I screamed, struggling as it tried to drag me back. I was so close, I had to get out. I kicked hard until I came into contact with something. I felt a hand in mine, Phoebe's. Her ring dug into my skin, and she pulled with surprising strength until I was almost out, gasping for air. Finally, I stumbled out into the real world and I felt Phoebe's hand leave mine. The light was so blinding as I lay there, covering my eyes and crying relief into the grass. "Rosie?" A small voice came from beside me. "Rosie, are you okay? Where's Paul and Phoebe?" I looked up to see Benji's watery blue eyes. It was still daylight. The sun was in the same position that it had been in when I left. I stammered, unable to get the words out. Phoebe was nowhere to be seen. I should have gone back into the tunnel, but the feeling in the pit of my stomach, and the feeling that I got when she was away from me, had changed. It felt like it was forever this time. That aside, I was scared. The thought of going back to that tunnel gripped my throat and I grabbed Benji's hand. I remember screaming at Benji to run, and I felt my heart in my throat until I collapsed through my front door into the arms of my mother. There was a police investigation, of course. They concluded that she had been abducted from the tunnel, citing Benji's unreliable witness. He may have wandered off. I know better though. She is still down there. Sometimes I'll visit her. I'll leave a little gift. Her teddy bear, some candy, little things she used to like when she was a kid. They're always gone when I come back though. I don't know if it's new kids walking our old paths and taking them, and if I had just imagined the entire thing. Or if she's still down there somehow, with that creature. Sometimes I don't know which one is worse.